Fantasy fiction promises a total departure from our reality. We dive into these sprawling secondary worlds to leave our earthly problems behind. But underneath the maps and the lore, the core mechanics of these stories often mirror the same inequities we're trying to escape. Many modern stories are built on an obsession with power scaling. We expect characters to possess godlike abilities, where a single energy blast can level a mountain range, without any lingering political or social consequence. In a world where power has no ceiling, the stakes often collapse. Death stops being a permanent tragedy and becomes a temporary setback, a revolving door for heroes who simply return stronger than they were before. But look at who is allowed to come back and who is forced into magical suppression. Traditional tropes like character death are frequently used to maintain a specific status quo, punishing marginalized characters to keep the dominant power structure intact. When we fail to recognize these patterns, our favorite escapist worlds become subtle reflections of the very biases we thought we left behind. Most writers start with Sanderson's second law of magic. It's a craft-based rule. A magic system becomes interesting because of its limitations, the things a character explicitly cannot do. While Sanderson uses these rules to challenge characters, a fictional government can weaponize them. When the state formalizes a magical limitation into a mandatory social requirement, it becomes a legalized institution. In the Annals of an Angel, the government mandates obsidian crystals be embedded into citizens. Moving this limitation from natural law to government mandate makes suppression inescapable. This mirrors how real-world legislation creates control. Following the failure of Reconstruction, Southern states implemented black codes and Jim Crow laws, deliberate legal frameworks designed to restrict movement and suppress the advancement of African Americans. These fictional governments use the same rhetoric found in our history. They frame their suppression as a necessity for public safety, claiming that shackling powerful citizens is the only way to prevent magical chaos. When a fantasy state mandates who can use their natural power, the world building becomes a functional blueprint for systemic control. Laws are only as effective as the force behind them. What happens when a marginalized character possesses so much innate potential that a legal mandate can no longer hold them back? Historically, when legal frameworks failed to enforce compliance, systems of power relied on extrajudicial violence. This was used to destroy marginalized political strength and maintain the hierarchy through terror and vigilantism. The lore of Alysanne reflects this. She was a hybrid with power that far exceeded the average human, making her a direct threat to the ruling class. Because the laws couldn't contain her, she was captured and publicly executed. This wasn't a heroic sacrifice at the end of a quest. It was a visible, state-sanctioned execution designed to serve as a punitive tool. This specific type of character death is a mechanism used to enforce compliance. It sends a message to the rest of the population that challenging the status quo carries a lethal price. For those who survive these systems, the burden isn't just physical. We have to look at the psychological toll of existing in a world that considers your baseline identity a threat. Prince Drake from the Annals of an Angel is an archangel who has lived for thousands of years. But on modern streets, his cosmic history is irrelevant. He carries the weight of centuries of racism, from microaggressions to institutional barriers. This pressure forces a tactic known as masking. Historically, marginalized people have had to downplay their true intelligence or wealth just to avoid becoming a target of violence. Drake must artificially suppress his potential to avoid alerting the state. Masking creates a state of constant, low-level anxiety. It dictates how a character speaks to authority and who they choose to trust, because a single moment of showing their true self could be fatal. Under these conditions, having immense power is an exhausting requirement for survival. It moves the story away from wish fulfillment and toward the reality of living under constant surveillance. When we use these tropes without questioning who they target, we risk rebuilding the same hierarchical political structures we see in our own history. Recognizing these biases allows world builders to subvert them. We can move past the standard formulas to create stories that actually examine human resilience. When a marginalized character finally shatters their magical suppressor and reclaims their power, the scene carries the weight of historical justice. That moment is no longer just an action sequence. It is an act of defiance against the state. Are you ready to deconstruct your favorite worlds and write arcs with real emotional gravity? Subscribe today and hit the notification bell to join our community of world builders, aiming to revolutionize fantasy.